Peace.
Peace, God.
I got my brother Self Saviour Allah here with me. We in H-Medina, So, without further ado, God, go ahead and give a brief introduction of who you be and a brief general history on how you got this knowledge, God.
Peace, Self Saviour Allah. From the island of God, Galveston, Texas. Got the knowledge of myself in 1998. Matter of fact, November the 7th, 1998, from a black seed by the name of Justice Divine Allah, who was a school teacher, taught world history. My introduction was, I was in a gang fight, and I was about to do some nut shit, and the guy was like, "Hey, before I let you throw your life away, I'll lose mine." He pulled me in his classroom, and I just met him, and his name was JD. Me and JD built for a while, and I kept getting in trouble because I had a teacher, Miss Scott, who would always kick me out of class, and she would always make me go to JD's class, and God would be like, "Back again, huh?" And on his board in his classroom, it had today's math, and I used to ask him, like, what that mean, And he had this cup on his table, like WWJD, and I'm like, what would Jesus do? He said, nah, what would Justice Divine do? And me and the God, we would start building, and he was just like, man, it was history from there, He taught me mathematics initially. Then got into 120 lessons, its proper order. He gave me foundational teachings, really, man. It wasn't like it was this heavy cultural aspect, seeing as that we're from Galveston. He gave me what he gave me, man, to the best of his ability. However, when Trueborn got here, December the 12th, 2016, when the cipher began, we married on, and from there it became, me and Trueborn instantly, though, it's my brother, I would tell him what I knew, and he'd tell me, go like that, As a matter of fact, rewinding a little bit, before I even met Trueborn on December the 12th, 2016, I got an opportunity to build with King Asiatic, maybe Remember the Perfection, and it was on his birthday, November the 14th, 2014, and we had a brief build, and he was like, man, what's your name? I told him my name. He was like, killing the build, man, and asked me questions. I didn't have real answers for him. I told him what I knew, and yeah, do you know 120? And I was like, yeah, I know 120. Got to ask me questions from 120, and I was pretty stealth on my lesson, good. However, once again, culturally, I was all over the place. I didn't really know anything about Allah's history. I didn't know anything about the science of the clock, 6 human families, things of that nature. I couldn't tell you anything about any firstborns or first generation 5%ers, and he had introduced me to Lord Hashem and Divine Allah, and Lord Hashem put me on. He had a website, I don't want to butcher it, I think it was NG Sudan, and then from there I was introduced to Shakim, and Shakim, I spent some time with Shakim, from 2014 to, like I said, December the 12th, 2016, when my introduction to Trueborn My Allah. And Trueborn cleaned up a lot of the things that I had wrong, and that's who really, outside of King Asiatic and Shakim, that's who really walked me through the culture, you know what I mean? That's who really shined the light on a lot of the things that I had wrong and I needed to clean up. One of the first things that I did with Trueborn, my very first day on December the 12th, was we had interior cipher calls that they would do on Sundays, and you know, it's how I was introduced to Freedom Allah, you know, who took some time with me too. You know, I never got to meet the brother in the physical. However, I got to build with him quite often because of his relationship with Trueborn. And you know, the one thing that Trueborn did for me early on was he introduced me to a lot of individuals, you know, who didn't just tell me what I had wrong. They didn't just say, hey, this is wrong. They showed me what I had wrong. And you know, I would begin to get different articles, and you know, he would come get me. I spent 24 months, day for day. Not one day passed where I wasn't with Trueborn until, you know, he left. He left in, I want to say he left in 2018, 2019 when God left. He left for a little bit, you know, take care of some business. I think he went to, I don't know if they call it H-Medina, Allah, True Love, you know, he went out there to the
H-Medina.
H-Medina.
Right, exactly.
Right. So he went out there, you know, I was introduced to, shout out to God Almighty Divine. I was introduced to a lot of brothers, man. Like, you know, me and Trueborn, we stayed in contact while he was away. However, it was instilled on me the responsibility of maintaining the cipher, though. So, you know, from 2016, shit, really till now, you know, we've been holding on. We've been doing this thing. We got born years coming up here in December the 12th of 2025, where this will be our 9th year of success. No rallies have been skipped. No general ciphers, 120 classes have been missed. You know, we continue to do the work here in H-Medina. All praises due to Big Bro. All praises due to you, Born Almighty, Serious Mathematics, brothers who've added on and continue to do the work and have made this thing better, you know. I mean, you know, it's not a one man, it's not a me thing, it's a we thing, you know. I continue to teach, Trueborn continue to give me students, introduce me to brothers. I'm taking brothers through 120. You know, I took a sister through 120, you know, our sister, my wisdom, you know. I mean, I looked up, man, it was like, truth be told, 41 120 holders, you know, and, you know, it couldn't have been done without the teacher's aid, you know, newborn curriculum, you know.
And that's here in Houston, correct?
Right.
41 people that knowledge 120 in the cipher since Trueborn My Allah first made his presence known.
You know, also, you know, I may get the number wrong. However, it's on the 16-point flag. How many children were born here in the name of Allah? You
28.
Know, 28, right. So, you know, I haven't added a star to it yet. However, you know, I mean, the work's being done. The work's being done. Every angle of the square is taken care of. Everyone's doing their job, you know. However, that newborn curriculum, that's what really made everything easy. The newborn curriculum, to me, is a teacher's aid. It's the teacher's aid. You know, we had a motto, teaching teachers how to teach. You know, yes, there are students. However, we teach teachers how to teach because the objective of the civilized person is to teach. You know, we got to get out here and do the work. We got to be on the post. And the newborn curriculum left no stone unturned. Lost information that brothers and sisters did not get over time, like the science of the clock. When you wrote that masterful bill about the science of the clock, we had, you know, the 6 human families. All these things are things we covered. You know, also the newborn curriculum for those individuals and students who have the privilege or who have married on. You know, I mean, it's an open book. We have an open library for them. You know, I mean, it's brothers and sisters out here from all over. You know, Almighty I see Allah, the Trueborn, doing his thing. I remember when my brother was in the interior cipher, you know, brother used to call me all the time, and we just go through it.
And that's Tampa Bay for anyone that doesn't know. Trueborn, that's Tampa Bay, Florida.
You had the interior cipher, man. I want to touch on the interior cipher. You know, like Reality Love Allah. You know, my brother. It's a lot of brothers that were impacted. You know what I mean? From Trueborn really just saying, hey, Trueborn and a host of other brothers, King Asiatic. I know King Asiatic used to be on those calls. I remember a brother by the name of Panther. You know, Good Son. I think Good Son just came home. You got a lot of good brothers, you know, that were impacted by Trueborn and newborn curriculum. And, you know, some of them brothers, they didn't go through the newborn curriculum. However, you know, those interior cipher calls was something that we did early on that, you know, really helped brothers. And that was in Savior C, South Carolina. We had the Savior C calls. Y'all are doing y'all thing now in the interior cipher with Cofield Unit.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, Cofield Unit.
They call it Truth Now C because it's Tennessee Colony.
Okay. So you got Tennessee Colony or Truth Now. What'd you say?
Truth Now C.
Truth Now C. You know, you got brothers in there that's being impacted. You know, Savior Divine. You know when he was away, him and Cam's son Supreme. You know, my brother, also student, and they doing their thing, man. With the newborn curriculum, you know, like the 3-day fast, it's a lot of brothers that just get supreme mathematics. You know what I mean? Somebody get supreme mathematics and say go, and then take them straight through lessons. And I'm not saying that's a death sentence. What I'm saying is, like, when you take the time to really vet a student, really get a student to walk and talk with God, and you build that relationship, and you deal with the science of life and everything in it. What happens is you grow that bond. That bond definitely grows stronger, and those teachings, like I said, it leaves no stone unturned. Those teachings become rooted in the student. You know, they will ask more questions. It's like it's a lot of brothers. I mean, no name, no blame. It's a lot of brothers that don't even know. They don't know our nation's anthem. And they've been here for years, months, and days. It's like, and that's one of the things I appreciate about that newborn curriculum. It's like, hey, why are you in 120 lessons and you don't have a foundation? You don't understand what we teach. You don't even have a clear understanding of what we will achieve, you know. And yeah, man, you know, just happy and proud to be a part of that legacy, you know, here in H-Medina and abroad, you know. Peace, God.
Peace. So yeah, guys, so speaking of that 3-day fast, because, you know, it's incumbent upon every individual to do their daily due diligence to fast monthly. You know, we tell individuals and students all the time, like, every 5%er should at least fast one day, 3 days out the month.
Right,
Me personally, I always like fasting towards the end of the month so I can enter the new month renewed.
Right.
So I always, the last 3 days, or, you know, prior to the end of the month, those are usually the days I choose to fast. However, one of the things that I love about our culture, like you said, building that bond of teacher-student bond,
Right.
is the science of whenever any of our students are going through their 3-day fast, we was supposed to be us fasting with them.
Right.
To build that bond. It's not just fasting with them in the sense of, oh, you starting your fast, but actually be amongst them for those 3 days as much as possible.
Right, exactly.
And if possible, to spend those full 3 days with your student.
You know, that's another thing. Heart self, God. Peace, Allah. One thing, like you said, like fasting with your brothers. I know that when brothers go through fast, man, you got a lot of brothers. We jump on it, like, man, you just came off a fast. Some brothers go right back on the fast.
Right, exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, so, you know, it's really the camaraderie. You know, the camaraderie that comes with it. You know, as we build that bond with our brothers, and they learn, you know, they learn to teach, and they continue to grow.
Peace. So, whenever Trueborn My Allah first came out here in those early years back in 2016, what was it like? What was that experience like connecting with Trueborn for the first time?
Man, listen, I can only be me, and I can only tell the truth, man. I was taught by Trueborn. I was taught by the time bomb. I was taught by time bomb. In that era, when Trueborn first came to H-Medina, he had no cut. There was no cut. You don't know 120. You don't know 120. You gonna get it? I mean, it used to be like, man, when I say I spent day for day with the brother for 2 years, I bear witness to his love. You know, I don't want to say anything negative, you know. However, his love, his passion, his drive for it, his laser focus, his ability to call bullshit, his ability to really be firm, fair, and consistent with his brothers. Like, Trueborn was always firm, but he was always fair. He's always been consistent. Now, it's nothing he would ask us to do that he wouldn't do him damn self, you know. He taught us protocols, you know, things we didn't know. You gotta understand, man, I come from Galveston. I came from Galveston. Hey, man, my educator, you know, respectfully, I mean, I think if he could, he probably would. However, I never came to a rally. My first rally was with Trueborn. You know, my first experience culturally was with Trueborn. So, you know, that 4 or 5% experience and being able to really meet brothers. You know, later on we got the ability. We started going to Medina. We started literally going to Medina. We started really going to Mecca. We literally started shaking hands with the brothers that I had spoke with for years, months, and days, you know, via phone. And Trueborn, I mean, his word is bond, and bond is life. He is who he is, and he means what he says. He says what he means. He honors all agreements. Like I said, his word is bond, and you know, and whatever you want, you ask for it, man. And our brother will honor those things in the name of Allah. You know, all praises due to him, man. Because if it wasn't for him, you know, I wouldn't be shit. You know, that brother really brought this to me and educated me. Like he said, he brought what was in me out of me. He showed me the way. You know, I had the utmost respect for him. You know, at the end of the day, you know, when I needed a swift kick in the ass, he was there to give me that swift kick in the ass. But, you know, when I needed that wise counsel, he was there to give me that wise counsel. Peace, God.
Peace. And I noticed you said, like, I already know your history, so, but for the people out there that don't know your history, when you spoke about it was a lot of things that had to get corrected upon you meeting Trueborn and a bunch of the other brothers for the first time. How was it for you as a grown man in this culture who had came into the knowledge of this culture at such a young age as a child? How did it feel for you as a grown man to have been a part of this culture for so long and to hear those very words that you didn't have something right and exact, or to be shown the culture? Like, because like you said, it wasn't so much about telling you like, nah, that ain't right, God, but it was so much they actually showed you the way. Like you said, how did that feel to be able to be shown the actual true authentic culture of the 5% nation?
It was it didn't feel bad, God. It was more of a pleasant thing for me, God, like, because I think I was more ready for it at that time. Like, you know, Justice Divine and my educator actually have a real good relationship, you know, they bonded, and he was like, hey man, do for him what I couldn't do for him, you know, there's things, he'll tell him straight up, man, there's things I don't know. I mean, you from there, man, you actually walked and talked with these firstborns and first generation 5%ers, man, do for him what I couldn't. So, You know, when Trueborn came, it was never. I can't say never. can't say never. It was always. I always took his correction. With respect. It was pleasant. You know, he didn't belittle me, because he'll tell me too, like, hey, you humbled your will. A lot of brothers don't do that. A lot of brothers don't humble their will. I humbled my will, man. Like, I'm not finna sit up here and tell this brother, man, this is what this is, and it's not, you know. And he actually knew the things I did not know, and I had to humble my will, God. And, you know, Trueborn, you know, he say, man, you've been here since 16, man. Like I said, November 7, 1998. That, man, like you said, I think some things, man, it was kind of hard for me to understand at first. It would be more of an understanding thing. And like I said, he didn't just tell me, he showed me, God. Like a lot of brothers, like, this is how I go, this is what this is. Man, show and prove, or shut the fuck up, you know. Like, this ain't show and tell, show and prove. God showed and proved. You know, it wasn't just about getting brothers on the line. Like, hey, man, it's like, hey, man, read this. This is what this said. Come on, God. Come on, Son of Man. You know what it is, Born Almighty.
Right, exactly.
I mean, we got access to things that are needed. You know, and we make sure that brothers get those things, because, hey, this will really eradicate the lie. You know what I mean? So it was pleasant, God. It wasn't, you know. I think the only thing that came, that I ain't gonna say it was a bad thing. The thing that I appreciated the most that Trueborn really helped me to get was brothers. Like, man, it's like, hey, man, you go from being by yourself. You know, I'm by myself. This is me and Justice Divine. You know, Shakim, Shaborn, Self Ruler now. You know, at that point, you know, you had Power Divine, you had all these brothers that's coming out the woodworks, and now I'm educating brothers, cleaning brothers, going mathematics. You know, I had the privilege of walking that brother through 120. You know, all it's like, and later on, serious mathematics. You know, man, having brothers, man, and having brothers to do the work with, to be on post with, to live this out, to give this to the people who needed it, you know, who deserve it, you know. Hey, that's the part of this that, you know, I really appreciated the most. I was definitely by myself. Peace, God.
Peace. So, in regards to you feeling like you was by yourself, and then you being able to build up that brotherhood within this cipher, what was some of the early stages of that cipher being built? Like, can you give me some history on some of the obstacles that y'all faced amongst building that early cipher? Because it from what it first was to what it is now, it's like a lot of people see the result of what was years, months, and days in the making.
Right.
So a lot of people tend to get discouraged whenever they go to new places and start trying to build a cipher up. You know, one of the things that Trueborn always teaches us is build and they will come. Right. But a lot of people tend to get discouraged when people don't come right away, or the cipher doesn't necessarily be built in one night. And that's why we use terms like, one of your favorite terms that you always like to utilize is built, not bought.
Right. It's definitely built, not bought. You know, you can't teach desire. A lot of heartache in the beginning. However, a lot of success too, because like the God said, build it and they will come. We just didn't stop teaching, God. You know, like one of my favorite brothers, you know, and I need him to know he's one of my favorite brothers, man, Our Justice. You know, Our Justice was instrumental to me, in the, you know what I mean, especially in the beginning, because it's like, hey, it was a guy, Our Justice was very instrumental because he was very inspirational. Like, Our Justice wouldn't let you, like, you get the feeling, man, fuck this shit. I just be like, man, no, God, come on, God. You know, Our Justice was at those rallies. It would be Our Justice. It would be Self-Righteous. It would be, like I said, Power to My, like, it'd be us. But then you start seeing, Self Ruler, he bringing 3-4 brothers. I'm bringing brothers. You know, brothers coming from the interior cipher, like you said, the result of that is what you see now. You know, like, you're not giving up, not giving in, not surrendering, doing your duty, staying on post, regardless of whom or what. You know, and H-Medina, baby, that's him. That's what happened. You know, that's what happened. You know, shit, you doing your thing. Look, you know what I mean? It's like, that's the thing that makes you proud, because it's like, man, you know what? This was built, not bought, and this is the result of building and not buying. You know, we didn't buy into the shortcut, the cheat codes or whatever. We didn't, man. Nah, man. Listen, we gonna get out here in these streets. Hey, man, we gotta get out here. Let's go in the street and work. We can't just be at the park talking, you know. So we hit the streets. We stopped, you know, that was important, you know, like CUNY Homes, Wesley Square. Like, man, brothers have been walking in and out of these places, building to be born for years, months, and days. The presence of the 5% Nation is heavily known here in Houston, Texas now. And I'm not solely responsible for that. Like I said, it's not a me thing, it's a we thing. Because, hey, I know I dropped the ball several different times. However, I got brothers that picked it up, ran with it, scored, touchdown. So, all praises due to you, all praises due to our brothers. Peace.
Right, exactly. Because when one of us win, all of us win.
You know what I mean?
That's why we say we the ones. We the ones and one that won.
You know, if not you, then who? You know? Period. Like, if not you, then who? The best knower does not mean you know everything. The best knower truly means all minds are one. Because what I don't know, Almighty Justice may know. You may know. And I'm you, you're me, and we're one. And that's us, the universal saviors. So we're not losing time. We're not losing time on shit, God. You know, we're going to keep doing what we're doing. It's year 9. It's going to be a year 29. It's going to be a year 39. I might not see it. However, I might see it. However, God, it's going to happen. Because what we're instilling in brothers and sisters. Can't forget our sisters too. We're instilling that in them. Hey, this thing, you know what I mean? This thing existed before us too, you know? You know, when we picked it up, once again, like you said, man, we picked it up, we ran with it. You know, you had brothers and sisters. Shakim, shout out to him, you know. You know, Shakim was doing this 2012, and there was things going on before 2012 too. So it's like, Allah will manifest. It does not die, God. This does not die. Allah can never die. You just got to keep doing your what? Job. Peace, God.
Peace. And being that you came into this culture so young, God, what was some of the ways that you can relate the mathematics to actually being beneficial and saving your actual life as a young child?
You just heard me say it not too long ago, God, when I was talking to the God Master Rule. I say once you apply mathematics to anything, it becomes everything. Mm-hmm. You know, like, it's in its simplest form. You know, we say keep it simple, teach it real. When I got mathematics, it was not correct. I didn't get mathematics. I had power refinement. I had culture freedom. I had power refinement. However, we know it's culture. We know it's freedom when applied to 40 or more now. We know that it's power, and we respect that. We respect it as power. Power is the truth. Truth don't need refinement. You know, culture, you know, refinement goes closer to culture anyway. So, you know, Allah God, like the way Trueborn instilled that in me, you know, versus when I first got it, you know, what I've learned to do while teaching it is keep it simple, teach it real, no negotiations, no surrendering, peace. This is Allah's manifestation. Who am I to change it? I don't have the authority to change that. which Allah has ordained. This is his mind, you know. And at the end of the day, God, you know, like I said, you know, once you apply mathematics to anything, it becomes everything, God. Peace, God.
Peace, God. So for an individual that doesn't really have any knowledge about this culture, how would you break down supreme mathematics to them and the order of it going from 1 to 9 and then adding on to the cipher?
Well, seeing is that we had a newborn curriculum, I would take it one number at a time. Simple, keeping it simple. Like, knowledge is to know. You know, knowledge is simply to know. Knowledge is the foundation of all things existence. Hydrogen, protons, and solar facts and all. Actually, no, we're not doing that. Because now I'm talking above the heads of the people, right? So, just keeping it completely simple. Knowledge is to know. 1 to 9. Wisdom, ways and actions. However, yeah, these can be added to it, right? Wise ways, words, actions. Wisdom is our ability to tolerate that which is indifferent and love the blind. Yeah, we can do that. However, simplicity, God. Simplicity from 1 to 9 and showing the reality of each number. Teaching people value by, like for instance, knowledge has value. From knowledge to born. Born has value, right? Born means what?
To be complete.
Right. Is it born alive or is it born dead? Right?
That's to be determined.
Exactly. It's to be determined. So, you know, like today's degree, God, that label. You know, if you take, you go through the mind of Allah, it's like, okay. Now it's like, all right, born, labor, live. All those things are in that degree, right? So, that's too much for a newborn. That's not for them. What's for them is, okay, born means to be complete. Born means bring something into existence. I even told one brother, you know, we like to say from knowledge to born. Well, that's inception and completion. See what I'm saying? Beginning, not necessarily an end, because it's cipher. It's infinite. So I just keep it all the way simple, G. Peace, God.
Peace. Indeed, God, indeed. So, in keeping it simple, how has that worked for you? Because, you know, our motto here at H-Medina is obviously keep it simple, teach it real. And I think it goes without showing, really, the reason why we're so successful is because our ability to be able to explain things and relate to people in a simplistic manner, which allows them to be receptive to it. Because, you know, when we come amongst the 85%, we're not coming amongst scholars. Sometimes we might come across an 85 of that, in a sense he might have some type of academic background where, you know, he was a smart kid in class or in school. Right. He just had the negative behaviors or ways because of certain conditions that they was in. However, for the most part, majority of the people that we run across who we strive to teach and we bring civilization to are those who would be considered illiterate. And we know illiterate means ignorant.
Right.
And one of the ways that ignorant is defined as is not knowing.
Right.
However, it also can be defined as ignoring it, because the root word in ignorant is to ignore. So we have to be able to relate a message where even if someone's mind might not be receptive to that message at that specific moment, we're able to speak things so simplistic that we can plant a seed in their minds that conversation might come up later on that day or later on that week or later on that month, and they'll be like, damn, hold up. Right, this was what Self Saviour was talking about. I remember that dude named Self Saviour. This is what he was telling me about.
Right.
And that opposed to, like you said, going into the science of the protons, electrons, neutrons, all that type of stuff. Right. You know, the higher sciences. Right. One of the things that we was taught is you got to deal with the city science first.
The earth below.
The earth below before you take someone to the heavens above.
Right. God, it's like it's a relationship, right? Our relationship. I think that because thinking comes from not knowing. Our success is highly rooted in our ability to show and prove the relationship to each thing we teach to the individual student as they marry on to the mind of Allah, you know? That's why we're successful. Also, it's not about taking heads, it's not about being disrespectful, it's about really teaching, taking that time, like, man, walking and talking with an individual, and we make it our duty to stand next to a person. You know, it's not, hey, 120, or oh, now you on this lesson, get out my face, or making people beg for lessons, or peace, God, peace to the God, Self Saviour.
Peace. Self Saviour.
Lord Almighty.
Nice to meet you. That relationship, as I said, man, building that relationship with the individual as they marry on to the mind of Allah by being simplistic, being realistic, because some brothers, they're not dealing with the earth below, they're not even dealing with reality. They're dealing with pack math, they're dealing with some space invader shit. We're dealing with the reality of the cipher at all times. Peace.
Which is why we don't born out our mathematics.
Right. Exactly.
Can you get a little bit into that on the sole reason why here in H-Medina, why we don't born out the mathematics?
Well, not born in math is just simply dealing with the reality that's in front of you. I'm not chasing if the day was the 12th, it's the 12th. It's not the 3rd. It's not, okay, 1 + 2 = 3, but the 3rd was 9 days ago. Today is the 12th, if the day was the 12th, that is. Born in math, I know we build to be born, God, but born in math in that capacity means I'm dealing with something outside of what is relevant or present now. So that's why I don't, Today's mathematics is born. If today's mathematics was knowledge as cipher, it would be knowledge as cipher, not knowledge as cipher, all being born of knowledge. It's just,
and not just knowledge cipher.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate a little bit on that, on the knowledge out of cipher opposed to just knowledge cipher?
I mean, knowledge cipher is saying 1 0. Knowledge as cipher is saying knowledge is added to the cipher, literally being added to the cipher, because what I know now is being added onto whoever's in that circumference or whoever is in my general pathway with their ears open, ready to receive it. Knowledge cipher is just simply me saying 1 0. It's 1 0. Like I said, keep it simple, teach it real. Peace, God.
Peace. And dealing with the science of born, since today's supreme mathematics is born, I kind of wanted to dive into the science of the seeds, because when we get into the science of the seeds, one of those teachers that we actually have as well that every person should know is dealing with not just the science of the seeds, but also the 3 seeds of perfection. Because we say that born means to be complete, right, and complete means to be perfect, because perfect doesn't mean without flaw. It just means it's perfect, it's complete in its own good time.
Right.
So dealing with the science of the seeds.
Right.
Can you break down the science of the seeds for us?
Oh man, 6 human families. However, the science of the seeds would deal with, the black seed 1, or knowledge seed, the wisdom seed 2, or brown seed, the yellow seed 3, or understanding seed, a culture seed 4, or a white person, a white seed. So, however, I was always taught that a seed is a seed and a man is a man, right? However, when you start dealing with the half original 5, that's a human family. when you start dealing in that half original is a seed of perfection that has mixed or intermingled with the culture seed or soil. Then you're dealing with the sixth human family, which is the red human family, not a seed, a human family. You know, we deal with the science of, now you're looking at, some would say multicultural, or you may say multicultural, or a blend of those seeds. However, like you said, the black, the brown, the yellow, the knowledge, the wisdom, and understanding seeds, all the seeds of perfection. You know, nothing more, nothing less.
What does it take for someone to actually truly be qualified, or in their own sense, come into that completion of truly being a knowledge seed? Does it just have to do with one shade?
No. I'm glad you asked that, because when you said it, you know, you sparked it. Like, when you dealing with he's a black seed, you may just be dealing with someone's shade. When you say someone's a knowledge seed, this man has qualified himself through the science of not only just observation and respect, but also it could also be his shade, or he also could be, it could just simply be like how my brother right here is doing. He's doing the knowledge. You know, truly being a knowledge seed, doing the knowledge. You know, listening, observing. You know, being on post. You know, that those type of things. Like, it's more of a qualification thing, as you say. It's like
a mindset.
It's a mindset. It's more. It's the qualities. It's the qualities and the values of said person. Also the morals of said person. Not just what the fuck they look like. You know. I know some yellow seeds that have the qualifications of a knowledge seed or an understanding seed, who, you know, has the qualifications or has that position the same. Peace, pardon.
Peace, indeed, God. So, dealing with the science of the seeds and the six human families, these are all cultural tenets that we actually teach, and we're taught to teach for the sole benefit of being able to relate to the people, because that's another reason why I know for a fact in this cipher where our success comes from, because like you mentioned earlier, we have such a large variety of history that's documented within our culture that's been kept and preserved in this cipher that is actually able to be utilized from a teacher's perspective, such as something as simple as being able to have the knowledge of the six human family and the science of the seeds, because now when we're going out there and teaching, we know how to come to the people as the people, because I'm pretty sure with all the brothers and sisters that you done taught, you have your fair share in hand in being able to acknowledge the fact that every student isn't going to be taught the same.
Right.
Or every student doesn't receive the information or knowledge the same.
Right.
Especially something as simple as their placement within that six human families or the seeds.
Right.
For instance, if you was to have a white father, so if you was to have a student that was a white seed, you wouldn't teach him necessarily all the intricate details of the black man being God. You would teach him about civilization and what his goal and duty is and his place in our nation in regards to being able to relate and teach his own people how to be civilized.
Right. You got to teach his people. We can't teach ours.
Or teaching a woman. Because we're not going to teach a woman how to be God. You can't, because she can't rise above 6. And we know these things.
Right, exactly.
So in doing that, you know, we like you said, us having that experience of going through these historical records of being able to show and prove the mind of Allah, as you said earlier.
Right.
Not just making things up as we go along, but actually being able to show and prove this nation as it was manifested by the man himself.
Right, exactly. Peace.
Peace. Okay, so the qualifications of a student, we know, is one that's already, he has those traits of being humble, being receptive, being studious. What would you say is the qualifications of a teacher?
Wow. That's
because the reason why I'm asking this question is because these type of things need to be addressed in a public setting, because a lot of times we look, such as somewhere on like social media platforms and things of this nature, you'll have a lot of individuals who don't fit those qualifications, yet they promote ideas or misinformation to the mass majority of the people, and the people that's out there that don't know any better, they really can't distinguish between an actual teacher and a false prophet.
Right. I will say this, I had great examples. Qualifications of a teacher to me about your perseverance and your diligence. You can teach what you know, but how much do you know? Sometimes some people just need to shut their mouths and let the qualified speak. And I use Trueborn. That's my Allah, so I'll use him as an example. And I said it before. Trueborn was firm, he was fair, and he was consistent. He made sure, he ensured, like I said, to educe, to bring that which was in me out of me. And those are definitely some of the qualifications of a teacher. Qualifications of a teacher are continuing to study. Some brothers think, I know 120, and I can sit up here and teach this shit. Like, nah, bro. You gotta actually continue to learn. Just because you are, now you have a student or a brother that's receptive, as you said, humble, you think that qualifies you to actually teach this person. You can show them the ropes in some cases. However, that doesn't mean you're going to be able to qualify this person, because this person definitely has to qualify or disqualify themselves. The qualifications of a teacher would be one who is able to even see that, like, this person is probably not going to you will be able to tell, this person is probably not going to be ready for this, and being honest about it too. Like, male teachers, masculinity is important too, man. Like, actually not being afraid to step to the mantle, man, and step up and do what needs to be done when it comes to this teaching, man. Peace, God.
Peace.
You can always tell the internet guys, man. We can. I mean, they can't. They may not per se, but at no length of time will they be exposed, because you're not going anywhere. You won't progress. Peace.
And like you said, speaking on that topic of identifying the red flags of individuals who might just be an actual false prophet instead of a teacher, like you said, that was a great highlighting point, is the inconsistency. The inconsistency of the language,
right?
The inconsistency of behaviors, the inconsistency of lifestyle. If you're a 5%er, this is something that we live out each and every day, each and every second of our everyday life. So it's like, right. It's not a hobby. It's not a organization. It's not some thing that we can just hang up and put on whenever we choose or feel like. So a lot of individuals treat this culture like that. That is, those who aren't actually rooted within the 5% nation. Right. Like, just that alone, the whole language of the 5% nation. You have a lot of these other people that come in the name of the nation of gods and earths. That's one of the red flags I tell people all the time, the identification. You want to learn about the nation of gods and earths, or you strive to learn about the 5% nation? And on face value, not just the 85ers, but it's some people within our culture, right, that strive and continue daily to try to normalize, or that choose to not acknowledge the fact that they are not one and the same. The nation of gods and earth and the 5% nation are not one and the same. Can you elaborate on the reason how they're not one and the same?
I'm a 5% of God, simple and plain. You know, a nation of gods and earths does not deal with all the human families of the planet Earth. It just deals with gods and earths. I'm a 5%er. I'm not Allah's 5%, because Allah didn't teach me. Allah taught some of the brothers that taught the brother that taught me. However, my Allah is Trueborn My Allah, and I'm a 5%er. So, I don't want to go into too deep into that, because it's gonna start a firefight, and then fuck them. How I see it is how I see it. I'm a 5%er. I'm not a member of the nation of gods and earths. I'm not Allah's 5%. I'm not a part of the horse trick pony dog cat show. Man, I'm a 5%er. This is Allah world manifest.
And like you mentioned earlier, the most important component to that is the fact of anyone can be a 5%er.
Or
black, brown, yellow, white, half original, red, it doesn't matter. As long as you can show and prove to being civilized and upholding the standards of this culture,
right,
then peace to you. You feel me?
Right, exactly.
In our culture, you can be deemed as a 5%er by being able to stay true to this culture and uphold it and live it out each and every day. And not just that, one of the other things that I like to highlight when it comes to the science of why we are the 5% nation, not just because that's been our name since the man manifested this himself, right, and historical articles, whether we talking about news, magazines, recordings, has always addressed us as 5%ers.
Right.
That nation of gods and earths is a newly acquired name that people have been striving to utilize, and one of the things people fail to realize is that, as you said, and we were speaking on qualifications earlier,
right,
every single man, every single woman, every single child has to qualify themselves.
Right.
So just like every single shade has to qualify themselves, just because someone might be a darker shade or the darkest shade, we're not going to say that's a knowledge seed right there if he hasn't showed and proved to actually be able to obtain and actually do the knowledge or move as what we would consider a knowledge seed. The same goes for the brown and the yellow, the wisdom and the understanding seed.
Right.
The same goes for the white seed. Because see, a lot of brothers, you'll hear refer to a white individual as a culture seed, and they haven't even did the knowledge to if that person has even shown and proven to even have a culture, right, in regards to a righteous culture, right, being civilized, because that deals with Allah's world manifest whenever the white seed is able to be a culture seed, right, and he's able to adhere to the culture of the 5% nation and be civilized and righteous. Indeed. And we say that's a righteous man.
Right, exactly.
So that is one of the biggest things that I think every individual should take into consideration, is the fact of the same way people don't just have to qualify themselves in regards to the science of the seeds, but when we utilize the term God and earth, those aren't terms that should be thrown around loosely. And us as 5%ers, we don't throw them around loosely, because every single man ain't gonna be God, and every single God ain't gonna be Allah. That's why we have a difference between God and Allah God, and that's why it's a difference between a sister, a queen, a moon, and an earth.
Right.
Those are all different levels and aspects of being able to show and prove the culture.
Right, exactly. 100%
so,
right, exactly.
However, moving right along, let's get into the science of the clock, because you brought that up earlier. We don't have to get deep into the depths of it, but what would you say, because you might have some individuals out there that, per se, they would like to think that, and notice I use the word think, and like you said, thinking comes from not knowing, because we know that the science of the clock was one of those kept parts of our history that Allah actually told the brothers whenever they went to visit them in Matterhorn. He gave them the signs to the clock, and they brought it back to the rest of the brothers. And for years, months, and days, it was kind of safeguarded in the sense that you had to come amongst the boys in order to get that science. So it's understandable that a lot of people aren't privy to the science to the clock, yet and still us being a part of this culture and us making sure to maintain these teachings as is, that's one of the important aspects of our brothers and sisters to actually keep and uphold, for reasons being that the science to the clock is rooted in utilizing mathematics in order to not be caught up in various ciphers.
Right.
So how would you explain the importance or the necessity for knowing something like the science to the clock to those brothers out there that might think it's not important or relevant?
The science of the clock's relevance and importance is, like you said, so we don't get caught up in the world of six, being on the clock, or being caught up in limited equality, or stuck in social equality. You know, the science of the clock is our supreme equality. It is the thing that we share amongst ourselves to show forth and prove that, you know, all minds is one, and that we can stand and that we can stand together. You know, even with our language, you know, even in the midst of our language barriers sometimes with brothers. Like the difference, like for instance, like for me, the relevance of the relevance or importance of the science of the clock is just to show forth and prove that you are an independent, transcendent creator. You before time, during time, and after time ceases to exist. Showing, proving that you God for real, not this mumbo jumbo made up BS about, you know, mysteries and miseries. You know, that's the importance. That's the relevance of it. You know, like you said, we can't go deep into it without teaching it. You know, however, that's its relevance to me. Peace, God.
Peace. And when you mention the saying being off the clock, what necessarily does that entail? Like, does that mean we don't utilize time? We don't, because you have a lot of people that create these misunderstandings and have these false perceptions in their mind of some of these things that we utilize and what we actually mean, because they don't have knowledge of these things. But for instance, like, that's something that I think everyone should know, is the science of when we utilize the term we're off the clock or being off the clock. It's like a lot of people get this misperception of that we don't utilize watches, or, you know, people like to be extremists. They like to take it to the furthest extent of being extreme, and people might actually do things like this.
Being off the clock, being off the clock just means living in Allah world manifest. You know, just being God. That's what it really means to me. Allah world manifest, just being God. I'm off the clock. Not that I don't utilize schedules, planners, clocks, the sun, you know, like.
Yeah, because you have people that show up 6 hours late and be like, God ain't on the clock, and use that as an excuse to not be on time.
Right.
Utilize terms like God's always on time to shield their dirty ways and actions.
Right, and exactly. I was not on the clock. However, that's what that means. Like, being off the clock is being in the mind of Allah, God. Like, just being God. Like, most brothers think it's, like you said, no schedules, planners. I don't have an appointment. I don't have to be on time. Nah, brother. That's not what that means. Like I said, independent, transcendent, creator. Independent, meaning, you know, like Big Bro say, man, we live the culture independently. However, we build a nation collectively. You know, that's being look, you individually off the clock and you culturally off the clock, because all minds is one. Peace.
Peace. And with that being said, God, dealing with today's degree, and why does the devil teach the 85% that a mystery God brings all this? How do you see that degree, God?
We just built on science of the clock. You know, let's deal with mathematics. Why does the devil teach the 85% that the mystery God brings all this? Because he needs them to exist. He needs them to exist. Yeah, cool world manifest. He needs them to exist in that bubble of time. He doesn't want you to be aware. You know, the science of the clock, like we just talked about, God. I'm aware. I'm governing my surroundings. You see what I'm saying? That's what it means to be off the clock. I'm governing my surroundings. I'm just being God. You know, he wants to keep them blind, worshiping something that they cannot see, invisible, right? And he lives and he grows rich from that what? Labor. You know, born, he lives, labors. That's born dead. That's why they're on the clock. Because that time is born dead. Being off the clock is being born alive. That's being shown living. That's being aware and governing those surroundings, God. Peace, God.
Peace. So in other words, like you said, born dead is being in a mentally dead state of not being aware.
Limited
to the information, to the resources, right, to the various things that are intricate in a person knowing, for not just things like progression, the type of information and resources that help not just an individual, but like you said, a collective society of men able to advance as a people.
I'll say this, God. How can I be on the clock when knowledge is infinite? You know? How can I be on the clock when knowledge is infinite? There's no length of time, there's no length of information. You know, I'm dealing with a continuous cipher, God.
And that's how knowledge gets added to the cipher, and why it gets added to the cipher, because it's a continuous cycle of going from knowledge to born, back to knowledge, back to born, in order to be born alive.
Right, exactly. Like we said before, you know, inception, completion. However, completion doesn't mean it stops there. It continues. It's a constant thing. Inception, completion, it continues. Once one cipher is mastered, it's something else. We're continuously mastering ciphers, God. It doesn't stop. There is no end. There's no end in sight. Peace.
Because in our alphabets, N deals with the clock that you've been stuck on.
Right.
For those individuals that weren't aware that they was even stuck on something like a clock, like you said, going back to those world of six.
Right.
Let's touch into that. What is the world of six, guy?
The world of six is when you deal with devilish men. That's the world of six. You know, you want to keep it simple, teach it real. The world of six is devilish men. Or like, you know, one of the personal bills I had recently with our big brother, Trueborn My Allah, it's like limited equality. You know, it's like it's just limit. It's a limitation set. The world of six deals with limitations. These are people who are slaves from what? Mental death and what? Power. That's a limitation. That's a restriction. You know, anything that's weak has a possibility of being what? Wicked.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
So would you say that the world of six deals completely in devilishment, or that's just an aspect of it, like you said, because it also deals with limitations?
Yeah, it's just an aspect of it. Because at the end of the day, the day got to end. 1, 2, we just gonna keep it all the way above. How did we get here? You know, this is how I got here. You know, can you rise above it? Yes, of course, I did. So did my brothers. So did someone. You know what I'm saying? I rose above it. So did my brothers. You know, it's just, to me, the aspect of limitation or restriction is what I want to highlight, because, you know, there'll be people watching this and they won't even understand what the world of six is, even if we explain it to us to a needle point of perfection. You know, like the world of six is in its simplest form is ignorance or limitations. It's just you're dealing with a real form of limitation,
whether mentally or physically.
Yeah.
I like that. And the highest you can go in the world of 6 prior to rising above it is 6.5. Because even though you get that knowledge and that wisdom, you're still in the world of 6. You just know how to move within it.
Right, exactly.
That's why when you look at the clock, the lowest point being 6 and the highest point being 12, well, that just lets you know that the highest point on the clock is 6.5.
Right.
You know, that's one of the ways I like to teach all my students when we go through the science of the clock and the science of limitations. Because we know the black woman with the proper knowledge of herself, she deals with the science of 6.5. She doesn't become limited to just 6 of being ignorant, because now she has the what? The knowledge and the wisdom that God bestowed upon her through the what? The sunlight. The mental intelligence that her God, who she chose, in order to bring her into fruition of that fullest equality. Like we said, that 6.5.
Word.
Because for her, that's her fullest equality. That's her completion, is being able to rise above 6 into 6.5. Not rise above 6 into 7, because like you said, we know that the limitations, realistically speaking, deal with 6.5.
Right.
And that deals with living mathematics, the science of the equality, dealing with the knowledge and wisdom. Because only God is able to bring about what? Supreme equality. That deals with the utilization of being able to have that 7.5, being able to know oneself and apply oneself and show and prove one to be Allah God, which is the black man with the proper knowledge of himself. That's how we able to show and prove it. That's how we able to bring things around us to their state of perfection, whether it be someone like our women, whether it be someone like our children, whether it be someone like our brothers and sisters in the community. These are the things that people have to take into consideration when it comes to living mathematics, because it's nothing spooky or mysterious about the science of supreme mathematics. A lot of people make this sound mysterious because, like you said earlier, they simply cannot explain or utilize mathematics in a way where they're able to come into the realization that everything is living mathematics. Once they're able to identify it, and they're able to utilize every key from knowledge to wisdom to understanding, the culture, the power, the quality, the law of God, build or destroy, born, and then being able to add on to the cipher properly and accordingly in no limit of time. And that's why we say things like, you know, God's not on the clock, the law's not on the clock.
That's his proper context, though. That's in his proper context, the way you use it. Word long.
Indeed. So, dealing with the science of the clock, since we covered that, what is some of the advice you would give to brothers that's teaching a woman? What advice do you have to share from your experiences of teaching a woman? Some of the do's and don'ts. Be mindful of your differences, and deal with her and deal justly and fair with her. You know, my only experience in that was with our sister, my wisdom, and you know, having the privilege of taking that sister through 120, which was a phenomenal experience. She was a star student. You know, what my advice would be is give her the voice to speak, let her be heard, let her ask her questions. You know, be there for, like any student, you be there for your students, you know, be there for, you know, you may have to take time, like, you know, you're dealing with emotions, you know, and be receptive to them, you know, don't shut her out because she has emotions. However, strive to coach her through those emotions, you know, those types of things. You know, that would be my advice, you know, while teaching the sister, you know, because you will deal with certain emotional, I don't want to call them barriers, you know.
You'll deal with certain emotions. You're gonna deal with a difference of opinion. You know, in the world of men, we think a certain way. In the world of women, they think a certain way. You know. Also, value the opinion. You know, if it's an opinion, you value it, you acknowledge it, and you correct it when it's wrong. Because we're not dealing with what? Feelings. We're dealing with what? Facts. You know, so at the end of the day, you know, even with sisters, they have to acknowledge the truth of it's facts over feelings. It's not about what we think, it's about what we know. It's not about what we feel, it's about what's right and exact or what's factual here, you know. So even while dealing with sisters, it's just taking your time, you know. Take your time with that sister, you know.
Okay.
Peace.
And what would you say a woman's role is in this nation as a earth or as a sister?
That's a good question, God. You know, I may not be the said person of that ability to even answer it. You know, I'm not really concerned. I'm not really concerned. I'm worried about being God. I'm not really thinking about any of that. You know, like what her role is her role. My role and responsibility is being God. You know, I'll cross that bridge when I get to it. You know?
And the reason for me bringing this up is because we know that we have a lack of youth presence as well as a woman presence in this nation. And from my own perspective, what I can say that I drew up is the fact that a lot of brothers don't know how to go about finding and teaching a woman. Everyone wants to deal with the same women instead of going out and making your own planet. People want to go and invade or land on other people's planets that's already have light. You know, just like with the science of whenever we was taught to with these teachings.
Right.
You're supposed to go somewhere where these teachings ain't never been known and make them known. That's how we continue to expand the laws world manifest. And in dealing with a woman, the reason why I asked that question is because basically what I'm asking is, what would be the values and the principles that you would instill in a woman you was teaching for the benefit of being your planet?
A ready-made?
No, not a ready-made. We ain't dealing with that. We talking about the one that you gonna make.
Okay. She would have my mom, God.
That's the best answer right there. She has to have, and that's what a lot of people fall short and tend to neglect. The real simplistic of just ensuring that that mind is there. She has to have your mind, because if she don't got your mind, then whose mind does she have?
The devil's. You know what I mean? If she don't listen to you, she not yours. You know, if Allah is teaching, then you know anything else is uncivilized. You know, you have my mind, you don't want to understand that. However, you know, it's a difference, like you just said, it's a difference between a planet you teaching that you give your mind to versus one that's already cultural, already in the culture. So, you know, so.
And like Trueborn told me, like Prince told him, some is for you and some is for the nation. So we as brothers have to keep that in mind, that every single woman that we come across that is open to learning from us, we can't have a standpoint of trying to make her our woman. We have to be professional when it comes to teaching.
Right. Well, as a brother used to tell me, man, Trueborn, man, sometimes they searching for that does not exist. You gotta be mindful of that. When you want the mind of Allah, you're observant, you're an attentive to that which is being taught to you by Him. You know, anything else, God, like I said, you know the bill. You've seen the bill. You know, if a black woman doesn't listen to you, she isn't yours. You gotta be mindful. Because if she isn't yours and she isn't listening to you, she's searching for that does not exist. Like today's degree, invisible.
Mm.
You know what I mean? So, peace.
Peace. No, indeed, God. Like I say, that's just my reason for bringing that up, is just to solidify the whole construct of what we say or deem as the unified black family, which deals with man, woman, and child. So that deals with God, earth, and the babies, which, depending on their gender, will step into that role of either shown and proven to be God, if they're able to be born alive mentally, or shown and proven to be the earth once they have come into the knowledge of the culture and is able to show and prove that they understand the culture.
Right.
Because that's the intricate details of who we are as a nation, man, woman, and child. That's the only way we're going to continue to expand and progress as an actual nation. Because, see, a lot of people have misperceptions that, and I utilized those examples earlier, like I say, to identify what some people see as a crisis. However, at the same time, I'm just bringing up some points from other people's perspectives, even though I can see those perspectives and they're actually visible.
Right.
However, that's not the case for every single cipher, because I know plenty of ciphers that is flourishing with women and children.
Right.
So it's just like I say, highlighting a key aspect to ensure that every cipher is flourishing with men, women, and children.
Right.
Because it was certain points in time, we know in our history, not ours per se, H-Medina, but the 5% nation as a collective, where, you know, brothers got big-headed, and a lot of reason why we see such a decline in a woman presence is because brothers neglected the fact of teaching their women and ensuring that they women actually had their mind, ensuring that the women was for the plan and not the man.
Right. Also feminism, and you know, you see what's going on.
Other type of trick knowledge that's out here that's been promoted as agendas, you know. And it's a real what I would say is a tedious process, because, you know, at the same time you have certain people, I can't name anyone in this nation, however, I'm speaking on just people in general, like I say, going back to those false prophets that would utilize forms of those trick knowledge to appease women.
Right.
And become womanizers, or try to further that cause in order to manipulate the women in said ciphers, like you said, like the promotion of feminism, or, you know, like how we say, you know, the black woman is the earth. Regardless of how you feel, no, you can never be God.
Right, exactly.
Because it's an order to the universe.
Right.
And the black man isn't first just because it's something that we put ourselves on a pedestal or it makes us feel good. This is an actual fact and reality, because we know life starts with us as the original man.
Right, exactly.
It's something that can be shown and proven in no limit of time, beyond a shadow of a doubt. Because even in this day and time, we're showing and proving to still be that active principle of being able to create life through something like sperm, as well as distribute it.
Right.
We're the sole controllers of that cipher.
100% right, exactly.
So the process always starts with us.
Right.
And we have to be wise in knowing where we distribute that semen.
Right.
And who we choose to procreate with, what planet we choose to go into.
True indeed, God. You have a lot of different, you know, I had brothers looking at the mile for 21, and you have a lot of different things that have transpired, but I want to really touch on something you said. I want to pinpoint something where you said there's a decline in women and children, right? and how do we, and, what's the resolve, basically.
Well, actually, I want to fix that statement, guy, because I wouldn't necessarily say it's a decline. What I will say is the ratio is off.
Right.
Because, like I said, shit, here in H-Medina, shit, with all 16-pointed flag, our Children's Day flag that we presented, it was 28 babies that was born into this nation with righteous names, with they pops and they moms being the God and the earth. And that was just those first 28 babies, because since then, we had at least 5 other babies that came into this nation. By way of H-Medina and the God situated out here and various other nations. So I can't say that. What I will say is, like I said, the ratio, when we look around, it shouldn't be that us as men not just as men. If we're seeing a lot of older men, we should see a lot of older women too. Everything should balance out in regards to ratio wise. The same thing, like I said, younger men, we have our younger women, which that is actually, I can say that as a younger generation, me speaking for myself, when I look at my brothers and sisters, we actually been doing a good job of staying on top of that and ensuring that we deal with this nation properly in regards to building families. And that's one of the, like I say, that's one of the things that I'm learning as a younger 5%er, in the sense of, because I'm not young in the sense of I'm a child and nothing like that. However, in regards to my older brothers that's up there in the age and their physical degrees, I'm able to see the importance of things like creating a proper family dynamic and structure of an actual unified black family. Not being caught up in the stipulations of the world of 6. As God and earth, we don't have to deal with nothing like baby mama drama, baby dad, all that type of, we don't even utilize those terms, because those terms in itself insinuate certain things that us as a people, us as a culture, that's not a part of our culture. We do everything right and exact. So in part of doing everything right and exact, we got to ensure that when we're creating these families, that we're doing it like we was talking about earlier, planning ahead, writing our history in advance, making sure that everything is brought to fruition from that determined idea, and the determined idea is a righteous one, and it's not one out of something like lust. Which is why me personally speaking, why I haven't been so quick to just let off the gun. You feel me? And just doing that and just trying to procreate, because it was a point in time where, that was the thing where I hear the stories all the time of my older brothers telling, and their older brothers telling them like, hey, God, it don't matter, just go make babies. You feel me? However, it was with that mindset that a lot of brothers got caught up in a lot of chaos, confusion, and turmoil that wasn't even necessary.
Emphatically no. Not saying no to what you, I'm just saying, like, just shooting off. No, emphatically no. You know what I mean? That's setting yourself up for destruction. It's the same though, God. When it comes to the answer is always teaching. However, who are you teaching? What are you teaching? My uncle Jim used to say this. He says the juice worth the squeeze. You know what I'm saying? Making sure the juice is worth the squeeze. Don't just not just dealing with any and every woman. You dealing with the woman that you chose, that you choose for yourself. That's right for you. Not her being, not the opposite way around. Like, oh, she chose you because you right for her. You know what I mean? Making sure you chose what's right for you, and teaching. Being diligent to that. Because sometimes, brother, we get caught up in ass and titties. Let's just keep it real.
Hills and mountains,
God. You know what I mean? We get caught up in that shit, God. You get caught up in what somebody did for you, and now you feel obligated. Man. Listen.
Six sextillion times. They put the sex before the 6.
Yeah, he put the sex before the 6. So just dealing with it that way. Be God.
Alright, guys. So yeah, God, we've been touching on a large variety of topics, and for those that don't know, you actually one of those monumental builders in this culture in regards to you actually have taught a lot of people, God. Like, even going back to where I feel like you gave yourself, that's that great quality of you just being a humble individual. Whenever you talked about the woman, you only mentioned one woman that you brought through 120, but you didn't actually mention other women that you actually taught in regards to those teachings. Because how we say a seed is a seed and man is man. The same thing goes with students. Not everyone is going to adhere to the culture all the way. Some you might have that you might only lead a quarter of the way, halfway. Some might distill back. Some might not distill back, but they only get a certain, but everything is measured by the actual substance of what you was actually able to give individuals. And I know for a fact that everyone that you had contact with in teaching, you was actually able to give them that substance, because even with the few years that I've known you, it's been a lot of jewels and blessings that I've got from you, and I've been able to internalize and utilize. So with you having that magnificent track record of teaching a lot of individuals, what would be some advice for other individuals that have yet to actually teach anyone?
We was given that teacher's aid, God. That newborn curriculum, God.
Teaching teachers how to teach.
Teaching teachers how to teach. And it's like, man, prior to having a newborn curriculum, I had students. It's the newborn curriculum just makes it. It's almost like a value system, or it's like okay, check boxes, making sure everything is completed. However, my advice would be not just the newborn curriculum, building a bond and a relationship, vetting a student, knowing the proper handling of people. I would also venture to say that, once again, like we talked about earlier in the bill, man, like continuing your own education. I'm humble. I'm a humble brother. I humble my will because I know that I don't know everything, and it's things that I've learned along the way, and I'm still learning things along the way. I made a great deal of mistakes. I've learned from them though. I continue daily to make mistakes. However, I continue daily to learn from them, and that's how success is. That's how you become successful. I don't, like we say, no big eyes, little U's, right? However, I take that advice very seriously. There's no big eyes or little U's, man. It's like I'm not bigger than the program. I'm not bigger than the person. I was just talking to Master Rule and a young brother, like I was talking to Nate, and I'm telling him, man, like, listen, I'm you, me, we're us. At the end of the day, man, it's about that cohesiveness. Really, it really is about that cohesiveness. That bond. Like, man, you know what? I know for a fact that I've had days where it was just like, man, screw this. However, what keeps me strong, keeps me grounded is my brothers, my sisters. That's what keeps me grounded. That's what keeps me bonded. That's why I keep going. That's why I keep striving. That's why, at the end of the day, man, this isn't easy. People tend to think this is just lightweight easy. It's not easy, man. It's not. It's a task. Being on post is a task. Staying on post is a task. Teaching takes time. You have to, if you really are teaching someone, you're dedicating that time to that person. I've lost friends. I've lost friends, loves because of teaching. You have to really, this is a dedication. That would be my advice, man. Be prepared for what comes with teaching.
Making sacrifices.
Man, you gotta make that sacrifice. You have to make that sacrifice. Like, man, listen. Like, for instance, imagine I'm making that sacrifice and Sirius isn't here. Got serious mathematics. We got you here. We got born mathematics. Cleaning certain brothers that came in my midst. you know, and they wasn't just directly my students, but them brothers came and they learned, like, man, Supreme C, Power Divine. It's like, you know, Divine C. It's a list of brothers. Like I said, man, it's 41 brothers, sisters that knowledge 120 and the culture because of that dedication, that sacrifice, you know. And my sacrifice is important because a man sacrificed for me, you know. Somebody took that time and said, hey, I'm gonna teach this young brother, I'm gonna make sure this brother got it. And you know, and that same brother introduced me to Trueborn, or that same brother and Trueborn are close, you know. And I'm grateful for it. You know, I'm grateful for Lord Hashem, you know. You know, that brother told me to renew my history. You know, I'm grateful for Shakim, you know, answering the phone and making sure that, hey, I was good and looking at what I had going on and, hey, checking on me, you know what I mean, making sure that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. You know, I'm grateful for King Asiatic for blessing me with that history and cleaning certain cultural things or certain historical things I had wrong, for cleaning that all the way up, and that's a sacrifice. You know, you can lose time with people. Like you was talking about, man, some people, man, they don't get it. They get this far, they get that far, and sometimes you can view that as losing time. I don't view none of that as losing time. You know, that's a part of the journey, man. I appreciate those brothers that came before me. You know, Trueborn My Allah, you know, who taught me the culture. You know, Justice Divine taught me 120 and foundational things. Trueborn, marrying on to the mind of Allah via Trueborn My Allah. I mean, that was the completion for me, God. You know, that was the missing piece for me, and because of that, I was able to really lock in and, you know, and get certain brothers where they was going, like.
And I want to touch on that right there, God, because that's a significant statement that you just made in regards to Justice Divine taught you 120. However, you receiving the culture from Trueborn is what actually you said was the completion of actually being married on to this culture.
Right, exactly. Like, I was in high school. I was in high school when I acknowledged 120, God. I was 16 years old when I acknowledged 120, God. You know, I didn't forgot 120 and had to go back and renew my history, and then here I am years later, and my educator and me, we you know, I don't want to say we had some differences. However, you know, like father, like son, you know, butting heads and just say, hey, God, there's more to this, and I want to find it. And me getting out there finding that, God, and like I said, man, like brothers like King Asiatic, brothers like Shakim, even Lord Hashem, you know, brothers that they played an intricate part in that. You know, if it wasn't for Lord Hashem, I wouldn't have got with Shakim. Shakim, you know, Shakim and Trueborn, they, you know, those brothers came together. They're part of that Genesis. You know, I built, you know what I'm saying? We built. We are the foundation for what became H-Medina, you know, and because of that.
Because originally y'all came together and agreed upon he and her truth known.
Right. And then, you know what happened with the H-Medina. You know what I'm saying?
Children's Day happened.
Yeah, Children's Day happened.
First establishment of our Children's Day.
Yeah, so.
However, the Southwest was always viewed as H-Medina, correct?
Right.
That's where y'all had the original first house parliaments for y'all as a cipher.
I'm not gonna say that. I'm not gonna say that I disliked the name He and Her Truth Known. It was just
It was too complicated.
Too complicated.
And people used to fuck it up, per se. He or her truth known.
You know,
things like that.
Truth unknown. People still say unknown. Truth unknown.
Yeah, it's like, I don't understand that. How the truth unknown if the guys here making knowledge born?
Yeah, so we had it was
alphabets are flexible.
Right. So we were at the warm embrace, the very first warm embrace, and I remember I was messing with Trueborn. I'm like, man, I'm changing the name, God. I'm gonna change the name. He's like, what, God? H-Medina, God. Like, H-Medina. I just said it on the camera, like, and I kept saying it, like, H-Medina, God. Like, that's what this is. H-Medina, it's Medina, God. H-Medina, like, and years later, y'all brothers, y'all come. It's like, yeah, man, nah, it's H-Medina, man. We're not. He and her truth known. It's too long, man. And then the H
represents he and her.
Yeah, it's like they gotta do all that H-Medina, man. So yeah. Peace, God.
Peace. So to get into closing on this build, how do you view the direction of this nation as of today, which is November 9th, 2025?
Being on post, God, and I don't want this to be taken the wrong way. My focus is H-Medina. This is where I'm on post at. I'm here on post here. And the direction is to continue to teach Allah will manifest, to teach these young people here in this geographic location the science of life and everything in it. To sit up here and say what I think the course of our nation is, or what or how I see it in 2025. Only thing I see in 2025, God, is me being on post. 2025 and beyond is me being on post here doing my job. And the duty of a civilized person is to what? Teach. And that's what I'm gonna keep doing. Collect, like we say, individually we live a culture, collectively we build a nation. See, collectively we are in H-Medina as members of the 5%. So that's all I'm gonna do. I'm gonna keep doing our part. We're gonna keep doing our part here and expanding this way and being that beacon light here. Peace, God.
Peace. And we advise all our brothers and sisters located on other parts of the planet to continue to do the same. Like the God said, stay on post and teach, and teach some more. That's the way we're going to keep expanding this glorious nation. And matter of fact, before we head out, one thing I do want to cover: Allah's world manifest, Yaqub's world manifest.
Peace.
Because we spoke on it earlier, but I don't think we really dove into the science of it.
Some like to say the 6 and the 7, right? And that's peace too. However, one deals with devilishment, the other one deals with the mind of Allah, right? It's the mind of Allah and its self-styled wisdom that created this. That's all our world manifests. Anything that's weak has a possibility of being wicked, and that's Yaqub world manifest. They're grafted, like a grafted mindset. Harming and hurting your people, being destructive. Mass destruction in any way, form, or fashion that is not conducive to the well-being and betterment of our society. That's Yaqub world manifest. I mean, man, we can go on and on and on, like religion. We can get into all those things, religion, certain like administrations,
belief systems.
That's Yaqub world manifest. Allah world manifest is the teachings of Almighty God Allah, and the spreading of it through His firstborns, first generations, and now us. That's Allah world manifest, God. Peace.
Peace. This video was brought to you by the 5% Nation, and H-Medina and the H-Medina Media Group.